Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. This is also streaming to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I am Rachel B. Lee, and this is my monthly live beginning of March, Women's History Month. We just came off of Black History Month. So much goodness happening. And I'm so excited today that I get to have ZVG, Zander Van Gogh. Yeah. Which I don't know many people who get to call them an executive creator intrapreneur. I was like, perfect example of a unique headline, right? I found Zander in the last year and a half since the LinkedIn creator team really launched. Since I left my Gartner, became a creator, and really invested my time more on LinkedIn. And I've learned so much about him. I think he is a perfect example of being a creator and has all the knowledge on what it takes to become a creator, which is what this conversation is all about today. So, Zander, sitting in Austin, Texas, by the way. What up?
What up, Austin?
Hook 'em. Gotta get ready. Put those horns up.
You already know.
First things first, I really want you to talk a little bit about your background before even the LinkedIn, because I'm looking at your background, a DJ in sales. Like, you really have had a cool background and experiences that have got you to where you are today. So can you kind of take us through who the heck ZVG is?
Yeah, I got you. Well, first and foremost, welcome everybody. Rachel, thank you so much for having me on today. I'm super excited to be here with everyone. And what is like, I guess the story of ZVG, right? So I would say it started years ago, back in 1992 on January 1st, ZVG became a thing. He was here. But with that said, we'll fast forward. When I was in college, I went to the University of Michigan. And, funny enough, I actually studied sport business or sport management. So I always had this vision that I would be working in the sport field, doing things along that nature. But when I was growing up, I was always told that, like, hey, you need to have multiple things that you have your hands into, whether that's hustles, whether that's hobbies, whatever the case may be. So when I got to college, the same thing rang true. So outside of just studying, I wanted to find ways to provide myself additional income that would be fun for me and not necessarily have to have a campus job. So I landed at my first ever collegiate party, as we all do at some point. And I noticed that there was like a person there playing music. And I'm like, yo, like, how much do you guys pay this person? They're like, yo, we pay them like $250. I'm like, oh, they still get the party. They still get to participate in adult beverages for free, and they get paid to just play music. Sign me up. Like, where do we start this? So I took on the profession, I would say, of being a disc jockey, of being a DJ. And that kind of carried me all throughout my 4 years. And even when I graduated college, it got to a point where it was like, hey, like, what does this look like in real life? So I actually moved to LA right after I graduated from school, DJ'd for an entire year, played at some of the bigger clubs, worked some weddings, did some different things like that. And after that year, I think I had this come to Zander, or some people will say come to Jesus moment with myself, and a big reflection where it was like, hey, you went to college for 4 years, you got this degree, and you went to this university at the University of Michigan, and I'm sure it's similar to like UT Austin in terms of people saying like, hey, once you get this degree, you can do anything you want. And I wasn't using it. So I was like, yo, what can I do in order to actually take advantage and see what it's like to maybe potentially work for someone, work in corporate, because entrepreneurship for me will always be an option. It will always be something I would dive into. So fast forward, I ended up moving to Chicago. It was the closest big city to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And my dad is actually from there as well, too. So I was like, hey, this would make a bunch of sense. I sat down with maybe like, I don't know, 75 people in my first month or so back, and just met alumni, met different people in the city. And lo and behold, I was pointed in the direction of this company called CDM Media that did events for IT level executives, or C-level IT executives, where we brought them together for like think tanks, conferences where they shared knowledge and honestly kind of created content in a way. But it was my introduction to tech. But what I did was basically sell and build relationships with these individuals to get them to come to these events and ultimately connect with smaller ventures, whether it's startups that potentially had solutions that could help these larger corporations like the Sonys of the world, the Kaiser
Yeah.
Permanentes, of that nature. So that led me around my professional career track in sales.
Yeah.
And long story short, I was doing a lot of work on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile was booming, as people would say. And I ended up getting recruited by my soon-to-be manager from LinkedIn. He was like, yo, we're looking for someone from the Big Ten. It looks like you use LinkedIn a lot already. We love your profile. You have some sales experience. Would you be interested
Mm.
a part of or even just interviewing for these roles that we have on my team? And I was like, yeah, it sounds kind of interesting. And to be honest, I wasn't even looking for a role at the time. I had just started an agency in Chicago where I was helping creatives within the music, fashion, and food industry connect with corporations. So this kind of just came out of nowhere. And lo and behold, I guess when you don't really put a lot of pressure on yourself, that's when your authenticity really shines. I did pretty well in the interview, and 3 months later, I was working at LinkedIn. So started at LinkedIn in sales, moved out of the sales department after about maybe a little over a year and a half, was doing some side work where I was able to showcase my creativity, and landed in engineering within the LinkedIn media productions realm at LinkedIn, where I was more of a creative strategist. And then from there, did that for 2 years, and then basically helped us come over within our editorial team that you guys know now as was community management, and helped us start the creative management team back in 2021. And then now we are where we are in 2023, which is crazy to see. We're almost 2 years completely into this. So being the first of the three amigos, I would say, to help us start this organization and then to see that org grow from 3 people all the way to 75 in a year was crazy. A lot of bumps, a lot of learnings, a lot of reward as well too was great, but that pretty much what led me to my career now. So always having a side hustle has always enabled me to
Mm.
find my next career path, and more importantly, always connecting with people and building relationships, whether it's inside of companies, outside of my personal life, always gave me the opportunity to have conversations, to express my dreams that ultimately opened doors to allow me to run into roles that make the most sense for me to just be myself in my role. And that's kind of what I say I do now is like, I'm naturally just Zander Van Gogh in the day to day. And that allows me to provide instant value to LinkedIn as an organization and then people in general to help them find their economic opportunity as well too.
Oh my gosh. So a few things.
Sure.
I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Okay. What's up, Badger? We see you.
Yep. Okay. And then I moved to Chicago.
Okay.
Okay. So UT Austin's where I got my MBA.
Nice.
But I got a lot of love for my Badgers and my Big Ten and cheese curds and spotted cow and all the things that, the Midwest provides to our life.
Fair. It's nothing like a Wisconsin Madison jump around moment. You know what I mean? At a football game,
Nothing.
that is iconic. It's nothing like it. I will say that. That's for sure.
And I'm from LA.
Oh, wow.
So and here we are both in Austin this moment, but your story really resonates with me because I think what you said exactly around this, building relationships has been such a thread of the journey that you've taken. And I think people look to somebody like you and say, how did he get this kick-ass job? And wow. And it's like, you've put yourself out there. You've just been building relationships. I mean, I love the example you said, I reconnected with my alumni network.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do that kind of stuff, Zander, especially now, right? The job market's kind of crazy and people are getting scared and they're getting laid off and they think that I'm just going to send out a bunch of resumes and it's going to get me a job.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do that.
It doesn't. And I'm a firm believer, and I guess I can say this is my testament, and I know everybody's journey is different, but I've never applied for any role, to be honest. Every single role that I've ever had, whether it was something that I got recruited for or whether it was something that was created for me, was all based on relationships that I had with other people who understood what my dreams were, what my goals were. And I took the time to consistently build those relationships over a period of time. Sometimes it was a week, sometimes it was a year, sometimes it had been for a couple years, maybe a couple months, whatever. But I took the time to consistently show up. And I think that's like been a key element in this, is that you have to put yourself out there and you have to consistently and continue to express what you want, because my grandmother always told me closed mouths do not get fed. So you have to be able to ask in order to get the yeses that you want to receive, because as much as we think people read our minds, they're really not. They're just living their day-to-day lives.
That's what I tell Josh all the time. It's like I'll give him the list, tell him what to go get at the grocery store. But Zander, if I don't put exactly what to get,
you're like, oh, you brought the wrong brand back, Josh. This is not what I said. He's like,
but you had bread on there. Or it's like, wait, you didn't get the strawberries. We always get strawberries. Well, strawberries weren't on the list. And it's like a funny example, but it works like that in business and in life, and what's so powerful, I think, about LinkedIn is that it gives us this organic platform to make those asks, but to first and foremost create those relationships, nurture the relationships so that you can potentially make an ask down the line, right? But you first need to kind of build that emotional bank account with people.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing I would say to that too is that in any profession and any opportunity that you're going after, people resonate with people. So even like, let's take it from a sales perspective, right? It was always something that was taught from us when we were selling, was that the product isn't typically what sells. It's how people connect with you as a person is really what sells. Because if they like you, they'll buy it regardless if you help them find their problem, right? And what I also think is we're in this time of like, people unfortunately being laid off, this time of an economic change. People also hire people. People don't really hire paper as much as you think they do. They don't, because in a lot of cases for a lot of these roles, there are already people in mind that they're looking to fill those seats. And it's those folks that have maybe reached out to them beforehand and they tried to connect with them as a person. They talked with them. So I think in life, like the person-to-person connection, while it holds true that it's very powerful, I think we have to think about that when we're doing things that involve community, when we're doing things that involves another person on the other end, that no matter what no matter how well you do something, it's really how well can I build my person-to-person connection with the proper decision makers in order for me to really explore this opportunity and give myself a fair, equitable shot. Because just submitting a bunch of resumes, you were better off instead of submitting 100 resumes. Why not connect with 100 people? Because the paper only goes as far as that, but the person allows you to maybe potentially open a connection to another person that makes the right fit, maybe connection to another opportunity that may be the right fit for you. So it rings true as well. Like person-to-person interaction is the key, I think, to all human evolution and progress.
I could have said it better. I mean, literally, it's like you're saying our value proposition at Standout Authority. I mean, literally, you're speaking my heart, Zander. I love it. And one thing that I think you do so well, and one of the pain points that we hear so much from our audience, is being able to express our value on social media so that we connect with a person virtually. And a lot of people struggle with this. They're selling something, they're talking about themselves instead of really talking to somebody. And you talk a lot about this, right? This is part of what LinkedIn Creator Program is all about. I'd love for you, since you have been you've created the LinkedIn Creator Program and you've created this whole unit inside of LinkedIn. What is the mission? What is we as members of the, creator community, what do you want us to do and create to help support the mission of what this group is trying to do?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. And I know the term creator is something that at least the LinkedIn membership base, everybody doesn't resonate with, right? We think of creators. The first thing I think people think of is Instagram. They think of TikTok. They think of all of these things. But a creator in a nutshell, or what we also like to say, a person that likes to share knowledge, a knowledge sharer. They're individuals that have something to say that can provide value to someone to be better in their career, maybe just as a person, maybe just the information they needed for that day. So I think the biggest thing of what our mission is to give people the safe space and the confidence to understand that it's not about being always an expert of a particular subject, but about being an expert of you. Because we all have a story, right? We all have come from something. We've progressed from being adolescents to teenagers to young adults to adults for some of us, and maybe even beyond that for others. And it's about understanding that all of those journeys have served a purpose, not just for ourselves, but could be a blueprint for someone else that's trying to be in our shoes as well, too, someday. So as we start to think about the aspect of adding value and receiving value, it's like this cycle where not that you just give what you get, but also as you're receiving, you're learning a lot that you can then reshare because someone else may not have received that information that you had. It's kind of like, I'm sure, Rachel, you've had tons of mentors who have given you incredible advice over the years. And I know for me, mentoring certain people, whether it's to them, me doing a favor for them or anything, they're always like, well, how can I pay you back? And it's like, I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to pay it forward. So what we're trying to get is that all of these individuals on LinkedIn, these members, these knowledge sharers, these knowledge seekers, we all have one thing in common, is that we've all had a journey that's allowed us to progress and to reach maybe what we deem as some type of level of success for what would have been success for us maybe a year ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And how do we give the safe space in order for them to be able to confidently share? And it doesn't mean you have to share every day, but if you just share a little bit, you just share one thing a day, maybe one thing a week, maybe one thing a month, you never know who's that going to impact to allow them to be better in their career or even just better as a person. So our goal is to get more people out of not really their comfort zone, but to make them comfortable within themselves, to share their stories and to share their insights and what they've learned over the course of their lives.
I love that. Knowledge shares. I think that's a really beautiful, beautiful way of putting it. And I have to ask this question because there are algorithms and a lot of the questions that we ask, and I just kind of went on a rant on this on Instagram, CBG, because I like get really annoyed with reels. And more than anything, I get really bothered by the algorithm right now on Instagram. I don't really TikTok that much, whatever. I have my own experiences and perspective, right? For me, LinkedIn is where I feel the most comfortable and has the most value content, and you don't have to be doing reels every day, right? And I love that. And so there's a lot of changes going on LinkedIn too with the algorithm. And of course, we know people want to hack the algorithm, right, to get greater visibility too. And so when you're trying to be authentic and a knowledge share, sometimes that conflicts with people's mission to get ahead in the algorithm, right? To make those connections. Can you talk a little bit about just some of the changes that we're seeing from the creator team in terms of just features, right? And ways in which creators can more naturally kind of hack this algorithm that is natural and really about knowledge sharing?
Yeah, for sure. I think a couple of things. Number one, there's no rhyme or reason of like a perfect formula to hack an algorithm. And what I've always shared with creators, what I've always shared with people who just asked, is that it's not about hacking the algorithm of the platform. It's about hacking the algorithm of you. And what you tend to find is that when you figure out what your formula is for your voice, for your audience, the algorithm won't matter, because it's kind of like if you're an indie artist, let's say, like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like MF Doom, right? Or let's talk about even someone like Lupe Fiasco or whomever the case may be. They're not like the Drakes of the world. They're not the Jay-Z's of the world. But what ends up happening is that they found their audience that loves them. So whenever they put something out into the world, that audience always shows up. So in sense of when it comes to an algorithm, I think the big thing that I want people to focus on is like the content. Because the cool thing about LinkedIn is this: every single person on LinkedIn has the opportunity to purchase you. And what I mean by that is that typically when you think about LinkedIn, everyone on there, usually they either have a job or they have experience or they have knowledge to share. So whether it reaches 1 million people or it reaches one person, you never know who that one person may be that can have opportunity, that maybe just watching you, maybe they're not liking, maybe they're not resharing, but they're paying attention. And like, as you continue to be consistent, that consistency always pays itself over time. When it comes to features, I think like we talked about this today, actually, well, earlier this week, rather, we had an AMA on our LinkedIn for Creators page, and we spoke with our director of product over Creators. And he gave a tons of things that we wrote out, from like analytics. Now you can actually understand a little bit better about what your audience likes, what they engage with the best. So always take advantage of your creator analytics. If you have creator mode cut on, you can definitely do that. In addition to that, the other thing that you can definitely take advantage of is just some of the new features in order to express yourself. There's ideas now where we have carousel formats where it's like galleries where you can showcase pictures, you can showcase videos, all in one way to get the message across for your people to kind of click through and see a story as like a slideshow in a way. And then also, obviously, you have things like audio events. So this podcast that we're talking on today, this live event, you can do the same thing, but you don't necessarily have to be glamorous in front of a camera. You can have the same type of conversation where people can listen in as if it's a radio show to some degree. And it takes the pressure off of you having to put on your face or having to look great, but it lets people really just tune in to the meat and the potatoes, which is the conversation itself, and really tune in with your voice. So those for me are kind of the three that have gotten me most excited. And I would say like a little cherry on top is the newsletter feature. So being able to express yourself in short form ways, like with carousels, and long form ways with newsletters, and then also with those in real time events like audio events, I think has really gave creators the options to be able to find their voices in so many different ways, for them to express themselves across the board and not necessarily worry so much about the algorithm of the platform, but giving them possibilities to show up consistently for them to solve the algorithm of themselves, which unlocks everything that they've been looking for.
I am very excited about all the things that you talked about. And I mean, Josh has had a newsletter for a while. I have a newsletter. We love putting it out there. And what I love about the newsletter, Zander, is really thinking about this as a piece of content for the month that you can repurpose. You know, because people get so flustered with, I have to create so much content. And I love the idea of using something like a newsletter that gets to that niche audience of yours. And then how can you slice and dice it into a graphic, into a carousel, into a video, and just leverage the heck out of the content that you're creating. So, and I saw that scheduling of newsletters is coming, which is very helpful for our team.
Fair.
Very helpful. All the scheduling, very, very helpful across the board. So thank you, LinkedIn, for doing that.
You're welcome. Everyone else is a big thing, you know, everybody I look at. It's like, yo, thank you so much. I don't have to do all this work in real time. It's great.
And I gotta say, just if I can, just one little thing, I miss stories.
Oh yeah? Tell me why.
I miss stories because there's little moments like this moment, and just being like, this was such a fun interview, and just like sharing that. And, you know, I know that I could do that a few times and repeat it versus a whole post, because I create content for the month. It's scheduled. Like everything is planned, because it's the only way I can really function as a human. The stories just allow for instant, fun, linked behind the scenes that I really miss.
Yeah. I understand. I mean, I've heard that sentiment a few. I'll tell you this. I've never really used stories when they were there. I was more of in that mode. I wasn't really working on this side. So I was using more Instagram stories than anything else. But a lot of people have said the same thing.
See, I feel like it was sunsetted too early before y'all became the LinkedIn creator team and like really put all this juice behind creator mode and all these features. I'm just saying, you know, to product, I'm just saying.
Fair. I understand. Note taking.
Just, you know, a little, just from the ears of your people over here.
We got you. I'll relay the message to the powers that be.
Yeah, there you go. And for everybody watching right now, just please let us know where you're in from. If you have questions, get them in. We only have Zander for a little bit longer, but we'll go in and get those questions asked, because I know you probably have a lot of things that you want to know. You know, one of the things that I love about your content is you're just really authentic, and you talk about feeling purposeful and inspired in what you do. And to me, that's the center point of building a personal brand. It's not just about the skills you have. It's not just about what you do. It's about feeling passionate and purposeful about what you do. How did you get there? You know, how did you get to a point where you feel like that and it comes through authentically in what you share?
Yeah. You know, I would say the adult answer is like a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, right?
I love that answer.
Big facts. Shout out to meditation. Shout out to yoga. Shout out to being able to just sit with yourself and be calm and just like listen. But as I think about it over the years, I think it's always been something that I really needed to understand. I don't know about you, but like I feel like a lot of people have like some form of ADD where we can't focus on everything at once. And for me, I get bored really easily. So what I started to really try to understand is that what is the reason for that? And what is it that makes me feel most like myself to where no matter what I'm doing, I feel comfortable, right? And also like comfortable to a point where uncomfortability doesn't bother me either. So being able to be mindful, being able to be purposeful, I think the biggest thing that I had to realize was that I have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I need to really be listening. And that just doesn't mean like listening to what everyone is saying, but also listening internally to what makes the most sense for me. So I'll probably say maybe like 5, 6 years ago, I started to listen to like my second heart. And if you guys don't know, we're told we have 3, where we have our regular heart that's right here. We have a heart that's in our mind, but then we have this other heart that's actually in our gut, which serves our intuition. So in a lot of cases, I wouldn't necessarily listen to that gut feeling when my gut was telling me like, I don't know if this is the right thing. So instead, I started to tune in more to it and just try to be more aware of what my body was telling me, what my surroundings were telling me, and just kind of following those things and just trusting that as you put the work in, the opportunities will reveal themselves. And it's about you being aware enough to listen, to follow those opportunities when they arrive. They won't always make the most sense. They won't always be laid out in the perfect yellow brick road for you to follow, but they're there for a reason. And as you become more in tune with yourself and allow yourself to listen more than you speak or just try to grudge along, you'll be able to uncover those things. And for me, that sense of purpose and passion is what I landed on as I started to listen more to myself, was that if I'm not passionate about something, it's going to be really hard for me to focus on it for more than a short time. And in addition to that, I think the other thing was that when I was operating and as I am operating in my purpose, I feel more relieved and it's just easier, to be honest. Like when you're operating within the things that you should be operating in, things don't come super hard for you. You know, I was sitting at a round table recently with like 10 creators in Chicago, and there was this individual, Julian, and he goes by Logic now, but he's in Chicago. He's an ex-creative director at Google. And he mentioned something to me that really resonated. He was like, yo, you know, usually you see people on the sales floor, right? Or you see people working, and you have 2 types of people. You have the people that are working really, really, really hard, but they're not getting anywhere. And then you have the people that think this other person is working really, really hard, but they're just really good at what they do. And for me, what that resonated was like, oh, there are some people who are operating in their purpose, and there are other people who are trying really hard to be something that they're not, and they're not necessarily getting anywhere. Will they potentially maybe succeed at that down the line? Yeah. But maybe they weren't just taking the time to really listen to understand where they should have been, what they should have been doing, so that all that effort, all that energy can be within something that actually is meant for them to do. So I really started to open my ears, I would say, and just pay more attention to what feels right for me. And as I've been able to do that, I think the opportunities have unfolded and allowed me to just really live through my talent, and live through what I've been privileged to be able to help other people with as well too. And I think that's where I try to add value in that way.
I mean, it's so beautiful and so perfect. And it seems with the role that you have, you're living in your purpose and in your skills and passion, and then now able to help others get there too.
Yeah.
I mean, would you say that's sort of like the essence of what the creator team and so much of what you're doing is about?
I think so. I think it's about being able to provide value to help people unlock their true selves. And as they're doing that, giving them the safe space again and the comfortability to be able to share that story with others so that it's a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
As knowledge shares, there are always obviously going to be knowledge seekers, but the thing is that we all play both roles. We're all seeking knowledge and we're all sharing. And to make sure that the economy thrives, we all should be doing both. So my sentiment to you, Rachel, is like the same way that you're sharing this knowledge with me, I then want to go and share with the next person. And that if we continue to think about the essence of like, hey, when I learn something, the next thing I want to do is potentially pay it forward in some way. That's when we start to see our economy thrive, and not just in the creator ecosystem, but in the ecosystem of life and the ecosystem of true economists and careers and companies. And that's what we're really trying to get to, is to get everybody to share this knowledge that we've all gained over the course of our individual careers, individual lives, and through our individual purposes as well too.
I love it. And I mean, we need it.
We do.
We need it. Like, we're living in a time that is very different than a few years ago and very different than 100 years ago, right, Zander? And we have a choice to make, right? As humans, as contributors into the economy of, what is the world we want to create? What is it going to be driven by? And so being knowledge sharers and takers, and the idea of that and paying it forward, I think is just a really beautiful and perfect way to think about it too. Because I think we've been in a place of a lot of taking.
We have, and everything you said, it just made me think about the old saying, sharing is caring. And I know we thought about it a lot as kids. It's like, yo, I have this toy and I should share it with other people, or I have these extra graham crackers. But that also resonates really well with me in terms of knowledge. Like, if you care, share. It's like, put it out there, because you never know who could use it in order to help them get out of whatever situation they're in, or to up-level themselves, or whatever the case may be. But that idea of sharing is caring, it never stops. From when you're a toddler to when you're a teenager, or older brother, older sister, a parent, grandparent, even as a professional, in whatever profession you're in, the more that we tend to share, the more that we tend to make others around us not just better, but we tend to show them that we care, because we're providing them the knowledge that allows them to be better in that way too.
100%. Well, if you're listening today or watching this again, or whatever the case is, I hope that you're understanding that becoming a creator and owning that isn't really so much about the creator. It's really about the authenticity. It's about you understanding yourself. Who are you? What do you want to share? What's your gift to the world? And when it comes from that place, which I feel like at 35, Zander, I'm in a place I finally understand that. It took me a while to get here. Then you're right. Like, it's easy to attract people. It's easier to get the followers. It's easier to get the opportunities, because you're just living in this place that is real. It's who you are.
Exactly. And I think the other thing I would add to that is that you can't get so caught in the vanity metrics and the comparison of other people's journeys as opposed to your own. I think the big thing that you have to do is just for yourself, show up consistently, and continue to find your authenticity, because there's only one constant in the world, and that's change. As you mentioned earlier, like, yo, the algorithm is always changing. And I mean, like, life is always changing. Like, you weren't who you were 2 weeks ago, Rachel, and you're not going to be who you are 2 weeks from now either. And that's the beauty of it all, is that as we continue to evolve, and as we continue to become closer to our true selves, for whatever that means for each of us, the environment around us starts to shape for us to succeed in that manner as well too. So I would also just echo what you said and add that to it as well.
Heck yeah. Woo, this has been such an amazing interview. I feel so lucky and honored to have a chat with you. I've been eyeing you for well over a year in that idea of building relationships and connections, and supporting each other. So I'm really glad that we could connect here today. Few things for people to continue to follow you, of course, follow you, but LinkedIn Creator Showcase page, the newsletter that just came out, any other resources or things we want people to check out?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, follow LinkedIn for Creators, follow the Create Possibilities newsletter. Also, follow the LinkedIn News Instagrams, YouTubes, Twitter handles, LinkedIn News as well too on LinkedIn. Be sure to give all of that a follow. In addition to, if you're not already following the LinkedIn company page and just the LinkedIn handles. This isn't just an effort just from the LinkedIn for Creators of the community management and editorial teams. It's really a true purpose of our organization as a whole. And that goes from our teams to our product teams to our sales teams. We understand that the idea of creation is what unlocks conversation, which literally unlocks economic opportunity, and that is our mission. So as you continue in your journeys, be sure to follow those pages for more information. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Give me a follow. I try to follow up as much as I can within my DMs. So if you do message, I try to get to it. It may take some time, but I do my best. But Rachel, thank you so much for having me. This is an amazing platform. You're doing a great job. And as you've been eyeing me, I've been watching you and watching your content. I know I don't like everything, but no, I've been paying attention.
You hear that? You hear that? Because you never know who's watching, y'all. Just like you said, you just don't know. You just don't know who's going to see and who's going to watch and be touched with what you have to say. So, what an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today at the beginning of March, y'all. More great guests to come, more amazing things to happen here at Standout Authority. So continue to follow, watch, engage, and I'm just so thankful. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we will see you soon.
See you guys soon, Standout Authority fam. Peace out.